You were told that trust is a virtue, that to love is to open, that strength means being unafraid to be vulnerable. But Machiavelli would smirk at that, because in the real world, the world of power, politics, and perception, trust is not a virtue. It's a liability. Trust gives others access, and access without fear leads to entitlement. They start to believe they own your time, your kindness, your forgiveness, and the more they believe they can hurt you without consequence, the more they will. This is not because people are evil, it's because human nature responds to limits, or the lack of them. The man who is too trusting teaches others how to take him for granted. He makes his presence cheap, his attention constant, his affection predictable, and when something becomes predictable, it loses its power. Machiavelli knew this. He wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Why? Because fear creates pause. It interrupts automatic behavior. It forces people to weigh their actions, to consider consequences. Love may inspire loyalty, but fear ensures boundaries, and boundaries are what keep love from becoming abuse. You've seen this in your own life, when you were the most open, the most forgiving, the most available. That's when they pushed the hardest. That's when they started testing to see how far they could go. And when you kept letting it slide, they stopped respecting you, because people don't value what you offer freely. They value what they feel privileged to access. The irony: you thought your openness would bring closeness, but instead it bred contempt. Because vulnerability, when not protected by strength, feels like weakness, and no one admires weakness. They pity it. Or worse, they exploit it. So the question isn't, should I stop trusting? The question is, how do I balance trust with power? How do I love without being used? How do I create connection without giving up my edge? Because if trust becomes your default, you will attract those who seek control, not connection. And they will take everything you give them and ask why you have nothing left. You thought your openness would make them stay. That vulnerability would make you more human, and being more human would make you more loved. But here's the brutal truth. The more predictable your kindness, the less it's respected. The more constant your presence, the less it's felt. People only value what they fear losing, and when there's no fear of loss, they stop caring. That's why Machiavelli warned, men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. As long as you succeed, they are yours entirely. Translation: people love winners, not because they're moral, but because they're useful. And when you stop being useful, when you stop being strong, they rewrite your value. They start asking less of you. They stop looking up to you. They begin to question what they once admired, because in their mind, you're no longer the provider, you're the dependent, and nothing breeds contempt faster than neediness. That's why niceness without boundaries becomes a weakness, why loyalty without strength becomes servitude. So what do? You stop offering full access. You start becoming selective, not to manipulate, but to preserve your value. You give less, so what you give matters. You show up less, so your presence is felt. You speak less, so when you speak, they listen. This is not about being cold, it's about being calculated. It's not about hurting others, it's about not letting them destroy you. Because when people feel they can do anything to you, they eventually will. Unless they know there are lines, invisible walls, sacred spaces they cannot cross. And the only way to draw those lines is to let go of your need to be liked. Respect doesn't come from being loved, it comes from being understood as someone who is kind but not harmless, available but not exposed. The difference is subtle, but everything. Because when people sense that you can walk away, that you don't need them, that your peace doesn't depend on their presence, that's when they start to value you. Not because you begged, not because you gave more, but because you could leave, and they knew it, and deep down, they feared it. People say, be open, be real, be vulnerable, but they never tell you the cost. They don't mention how the more open you are, the easier it becomes to wound you. How the more predictable your behavior, the more others adjust, not to support you, but to control you. This is what Machiavelli saw. The world rewards perception, not reality. Power, not purity. Control, not honesty. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few truly know what you are. So if you appear too soft, they assume you are. If you appear too open, they think you're easy to influence. And if you trust without conditions, they stop seeing your trust as noble, they see it as naive." In a Machiavellian world, power doesn't flow to the kind, it flows to the calibrated, those who measure their moves, who give slowly, who reveal little, not out of fear, but out of discipline. This is the paradox. If you want to be trusted, you must first learn when not to trust. If you want to be respected, you must create uncertainty, a sense that you are not fully accessible, that your love is a privilege, that your forgiveness has a price, that your time is not infinite. People respect what they can't predict. They admire what they don't fully understand. They chase what they can't fully have. So let them wonder, let them question your silence, let them feel your distance, not because you're playing games, but because you're playing for keeps. Every time you withhold a reaction, you increase your gravity. Every time you delay a response, you command more attention. And every time you choose solitude over begging, you declare, "I am enough." Machiavelli believed the strong do not suppress their emotions. They master them. They don't destroy their enemies. They disarm them through perception, and they don't demand respect. They command it through mystery. You want to be powerful? Then don't just be seen. Be felt, not through constant exposure, but through intentional absence. Not through emotional oversharing, but through selective expression. Make them uncertain. Make them hesitate, make them ask, where did he go? Why isn't she replying? What is he thinking? Because the person who is predictable is easy to ignore, but the one who disappears with purpose leaves a scar in the mind. You don't need to become cold, but you do need to become strategic, because the world is not a place that rewards softness. It rewards those who can appear soft while holding sharp edges beneath the surface. This is the Machiavellian paradox. To influence hearts, you must also command fear. To build trust, you must be dangerous to betray. You've seen it before. The people who are most respected are rarely the most open. They're the most composed, the ones who smile but never beg, who forgive but never forget, who walk away without flinching. Why? Because power doesn't come from domination. It comes from control, of self, of perception, of energy. And when people sense that you are not easily shaken, they think twice before testing your limits. You become less of a target and more of a presence. They don't know what you'll do. And that uncertainty is power. So next time you think trust will make someone stay, ask yourself, have they earned it? Next time you give them more chances, ask yourself, are they learning, or just learning how far they can push you? And when you're afraid they'll leave if you show strength, ask yourself, why are you holding on to someone who only stays when you're weak? Because real connection isn't built on blind trust, it's built on mutual fear, the fear of losing someone who respects themselves enough to walk away. And that is a trust worth earning. So from now on, let your presence speak, let your boundaries teach, let your strength be silent, but obvious. And when they ask why you're not as open anymore, just smile, because the more dangerous your silence becomes, the more powerful your presence feels. Now, in the next video, we'll explore a deeper layer of this psychological game, how modern life doesn't just make us trust the wrong people, but rewires our entire brain chemistry. It's not that you're lazy, it's that you're overstimulated, and they're using that against you. But before we go, let me ask you this. Would you rather be loved for being soft or respected for being untouchable? Because the world doesn't follow the most open heart. It follows the one that can disappear and still be remembered.